Hi there, my name is Dr. David Williams, and today I'm going to be speaking with you about XR as a tool in smart city design, from ideation to experience. Now, before I get started, first of all, I'd like to thank Feng Chia University for this kind invitation to join with you and the 16th Urban Planning Student Festival. It's too bad we can't meet in person due to the pandemic situation, but I've recorded this lecture, which would have been my keynote presentation, and hope that you enjoy what you're about to hear. So myself, David Williams, I am the lead digital strategist at Global Digital Mojo. We are an international digital transformation agency headquartered in Hong Kong, and we have a branch here in Taiwan. We focus on particularly the crossover between technology and design and human experience. And the topic I focus on today is really introducing a number of international case studies and a lot of the experience that we have in Mojo. Here you can see our offices around the world, and we've chosen cities which are very active in smart city technology and planning and design, and particularly in planning of new city zones, new special economic areas, new communities. Now, our particularly focus is on 4 areas: experience design, digital transformation strategy, communications and marketing, and corporate training and tertiary education, which is one of the reasons that I'm here with you today. We also develop our own software products and solutions in many different areas, including XR and smart city development. Now, today's keynote structure is first going to look at the concept of smart cities, and then explore more about what exactly is XR and its application in digital media and its application in the design of smart cities and new urban plans. And at the end, we would normally have a Q&A, but we've actually gathered together some questions that we've had in the past, and we've prepared some short answers. So let's start with the big picture. This quotation from Tyler Gates really sets the scene for where we are in the area of smart cities and planning and the use of technologies like XR. The future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. And certainly as I look around the different cities where we are located around the world, we can see different rates of development in the use of technology in the city environment, both in the citizen experience, but also in the tools of planning and design which are employed. So some cities, for example Barcelona, are actively engaged in a whole range of applications of technology, and also an entrepreneurial ecosystem driven by the regional government, the city government, and universities. Other places like India, Pune, Bangalore, where we work in India, the national government is trying very hard to push through new planning and new technologies in cities, and is having success and also having challenges to build on old infrastructure. So we can certainly see a wide range of application and also success. So what is a smart city? We hear this term a lot. If we are going to look at some definitions, the British Standards Institute defines a smart city as the effective integration of physical, digital and human systems in the built environment to deliver sustainable, prosperous and inclusive futures for its citizens. So in that definition, you really capture the combination of traditional technological disciplines and city planning disciplines, and how they are being brought together and offering new possibilities for services, for infrastructure, transportation, energy, and so on. And certainly these opportunities are very attractive to technology companies. So you see companies like Cisco, for example, Samsung, Intel, all kinds of infrastructure and networking companies actively developing solutions and systems for smart cities and offering those to governments and city councils around the world. And of course, smart city is a very broad term, so it includes both the residential areas, the commercial areas, the industrial areas, and transportation and connection between cities and satellite communities. So it's a very wide area and lots of opportunities for innovation. Now, when we talk about smart cities, we also need to think about design. So as a general view of a smart city, we can see there are many different aspects that make up the built environment and the experience of that. So if we were to count off 6 areas here, we've got the environment itself, we've got the economy, the government infrastructure, city hall as you'd call it, the people who live and work in the city, the people who relax, who have a lifestyle in the city, and moving around the city, both private and public transportation. So Boyd Cohen has created this very nice circle which helps to capture all of those different areas, and then from the center of the circle moving out starts to look at the areas of opportunity for innovation and for development. And in all of these areas, you have the opportunity for new kinds of planning, new kinds of design result. So smart cities are much more than just technology. This is something which we see a lot in the consulting work we do with city governments. Is technology is normally the starting point. It's normally what governments and cities can get investment for. It's something concrete, it's something which is easier to specify. So if we look, for example, across the different technologies, we've got information and communication technology, so ICT. We've got connectivity between objects and entities within the smart city. We call this the Internet of Things. We've got a whole sensor network part of that. We've got spatial geolocation technology, so where things are and how they're moving. We have machine learning and artificial intelligence systems which can automate and predict based on huge amounts of data available in smart cities. Blockchain is a technology which is giving security and trustworthiness in the kind of data which is passed around in the city. And all of these new technologies are really coming together to create many new opportunities, but also challenges of understanding and challenges of integration within smart cities. So this is where there's an opportunity for designers, for design thinkers, design strategists to bring the tools of design to make some sense of this crossover of technology and planning and experience in the city. Now, to begin this understanding, we can ask some basic questions, the kind of questions that we would ask at the beginning of a design process. So, what to begin with, why, and how in the urban environment. So the what, first of all? Well, fundamentally, every urban environment, whether it's a smart city or not, is a space which is occupied. It's a physical space, but also there are other representations and experiences of that space. We have mental spaces, social spaces, and more now, digital spaces. So the what, when we talk about smart city, is much more than just the physical infrastructure. Now, the why. Well, what's the point of a smart city? Is it to allow companies to sell more and more technology? Is it to generate more and more data? Well, no. The fundamental goal of all cities is living, is moving around, is having a healthy life, is having a comfortable life. Now, these are the things which we hope our cities can provide for us, and when they don't, citizens, companies, communities are very unhappy. So if we're going to make the most of these physical spaces, if we're going to provide these new cities and give new opportunity to entrepreneurs and keep up the living quality and the opportunity for health and wellness and mobility, the question is, how do we do that? And this is where design thinking and tools like XR are essential, because they can be used to understand citizens and help citizens participate more in the design process of these new cities, and make sure that technology is applied effectively and meets the basic goals, the why, of the city. Now, technology is driving a lot of the conversations around smart city, and this is something that as a digital transformation agency and as a creative agency, we of course have to stay updated and create with these new technologies. In a way, these are our raw materials that we use to create new kinds of experiences and to explain to our clients what the future holds. And we have many tools for this, many frameworks which are developed. This one developed by one of our friends in India, in Tata Consulting Services. And here you can see already some of the technologies which I've mentioned, such as blockchain, Internet of Things, on the left side. And we can see how these technologies impact the life of people in cities in the center area. So not all of these technologies are positive. They're not all having a positive impact. But the point is they are developing and they are available. So we have to think, how can we use them? What is the point of these technologies? So we have something quite complex. We have the city, we have many new technologies, we have many different stakeholders and requirements on the city. So the complexity of these challenges, of the urban planning challenge and the city planning challenge, can be broken down by using a design thinking approach. And one of the key tools that we have is the what if question. So if we can identify a series of what if scenarios, we can use technologies like XR. And I think you're all, if you're not familiar with XR already, you're thinking, what is XR? Well, we'll come to that soon. XR is one of these developing technologies. It's particularly focused on visualization and interaction and experience of digital information or digital and real environments in such a way as to offer new visions, new views of the world. So in a way, it's one of the technologies which helps us to create these what-if scenarios, these visions of the future, which are so essential to thinking about smart cities. Now, within experience design, a particular area of design, we also see a crossover of technology and physical product and interface. So in Mojo, we really think that experience design has a lot to offer urban planning and smart city planning, just by the nature of its embracing new technology and applying design methodologies to that technology. We feel this is something very useful for smart city development. So here we can see experience or user experience is not about only technology, industrial design or interfaces. It is about creating a meaningful experience through or without a device. So if we think back to the why of the smart city, we can think of that why as the experience of the city, because that experience includes services and processes, as well as people and physical environment and data. So all of those different worlds that we talked about together form an experience. So now I think it's a good time to explain what we mean by XR technology. Now, for those of you who've enjoyed playing with one of these next to me here, this is a virtual reality headset. It's an Oculus headset from Facebook. You all know that virtual reality or VR completely immerses you. So that's one approach to the idea of experience. It completely immerses you in a digital world, and that digital world becomes more and more realistic, more and more lifelike as the technology progresses. So I'm sure many of you have used a VR of some kind. Another kind of technology in the same vein is AR, or augmented reality. So augmented reality doesn't fully immerse you in a digital world. Rather, it overlays digital contents into the physical world. So it augments reality, hence the term AR. Now, when we have a mixture of augmented reality and virtual reality, so for example, we can see through and outside the headset, the VR headset sometimes, we can see the world through and outside, or we are completely immersed, we can move between the two. We call this a mixed reality. So all of these different kinds of experience together are called XR. So the X can be A for augmented reality, V for virtual reality, or M for mixed reality. So that's where we get this term XR. So augmented reality, you are probably familiar using your mobile phone. It has a camera. It allows you to see the image from the camera, and it can add content to the image from the camera. We call that augmented reality. Now, all of these new technologies are predominantly coming from the entertainment industry, and the investment and I suppose the drive of these technologies has come from gameplay, from playful experiences. But what's interesting now is we're seeing the application of these technologies into professional environments, into areas such as urban planning. And this represents a really interesting opportunity to bring learning from game experiences, from very emotional, very fast and interactive experiences, into professional practice, into professional process. And in Mojo, we've been exploring how these tools, which have come from the entertainment industry, can be applied in professional settings of all kinds. Now let's just take a step back and think about this application of these tools in professional settings. We talked about the city environment as being inherently a mix of different worlds, so a physical environment, but then other kinds of environment, like a social environment or a mental environment, but also a digital environment. As we think of all of the data, even now moving around cities between on the internet or between phones and networks on the wireless infrastructure, this is another kind of world that is active in the city at any time. And as we see the physical world being represented to us, of course, through our physical senses, XR offers the opportunity to start visualizing those other worlds in new ways. So the VR and the AR and the mixed reality and the extended reality, all of these terms are coming together to mean XR. And as practitioners in digital media, we are looking for ways to use these tools to visualize new situations and to offer to designers, offer to practitioners new ways of creating, new ways of manipulating and prototyping, new ways of interacting with data, and of course new ways of new kinds of products that can be created, new kinds of services that can be created. Now it's interesting, if we look back at the history of virtual experiences, robotics has always been closely associated with virtual reality, mainly to give some physical feedback. So you can see here what we call an exoskeleton, so motors and sensors which are worn and give information and give feedback, physical feedback to the user here. You can see who's wearing the headset. So in that way, what they see in the virtual world, actually they feel it as well. Now this system was from 1992, so 20 years ago, and things have moved on a lot in terms of the cost, lowering of the cost of this technology, but also the software and the media and the network communication has also developed a lot, such that now systems which could have only been afforded by government research agencies become possible for small companies and for city planning departments, for architecture studios. So we're starting now to see an explosion of, I would say at this point, experimentation. I mean, we talk with a lot of small businesses, particularly in the area of architecture and urban planning, and they are very curious about this technology, whether it's virtual reality or augmented reality. They're very curious about how it would change the way that they work. Firstly, they see it as a way to visualize. So the 3D modeling is something which is already familiar to city planners, to urban planners, architects, and interior designers. It's a way to visualize environments, to visualize designs quickly and early on in the design process. It can help in communication with clients and stakeholders. And augmented reality offers interesting opportunities there, where physical environments can be enhanced by digital content. So for example, a building site can be enhanced by a digital model of the finished building. So a viewer can see how it would fit into the cityscape, into the environment. Also, services and activations and touch points with citizens could be visualized as well in that AR. So the first idea of using this technology is very much around visualization, but we can take it further. Since the technology is built on top of network devices like headsets and laptops and cell phones, we have the chance to encourage collaboration. So particularly now in the COVID era when teams are separated, not able to meet often, having ways to visualize and to experience through augmented reality becomes a very useful tool. So design reviews, client reviews remotely can be done around these virtual or augmented experiences. From a commercial point of view, the selling process, and this is again where I think we have the easiest conversations with urban planners and architects, is helping them to communicate with clients. So immersing clients in new designs, in new spaces, in new layouts, giving them a point of view of a citizen, a pedestrian, or in a helicopter flying over, or however we want. These can be created in a virtual environment. A final point is an interesting one, is training. Often, particularly in public spaces where staff need to be trained on how to manage the space, even users need to be trained on how to work in the space, virtual reality can be used to do that, or augmented reality can be used to do that. So this social world and the digital world and these aspects of the smart city which are not visible to us normally can be visualized through XR. And it's interesting that one of my associates in Italy at the University of Udine is doing some very interesting work in virtual reality as a training tool for the aerospace industry, for cabin crew, how to deal with emergencies on board airplanes. So collaboration, immersion, and training and development can be very interesting applications of XR in the professional environment. Now, if we go back to think about the design process, so seeing how XR can be applied in smart city planning in terms of visualization, in terms of communication of design teams. If we think about the design process itself, we can use these technologies to get buy-in from stakeholders, and of course in cities, new urban environments, there are many stakeholders involved. We can have concept review meetings where new designs can be presented early on. Different design directions can be presented in design review meetings more quickly. We can deliver through sales tools, and we can help we can use VR in training and maintenance. So the tools are perceived, actually, these virtual reality tools are perceived as something mainly for sales, mainly for presentation, but actually the tools are useful throughout the design process in the same way that any kind of communication, interaction, and modeling tool could be used. So we have the opportunity as designers and technology creators to work with urban planning professionals, to work with architects, to say, okay, what if we did have this technology as a core tool in our design planning toolbox? How would we use it? Would it be something like this, where a customer or designer can see how a design fits into a space, can imagine that? Who would want to take part in such an experiment with new technology? Well, it's not only urban planners. We can think of the construction industry, where construction supervisors need to check progress on building sites. of course, the design teams have many applications for using digital representations. The key here is that we want the existing tools which are used, the existing modeling tools, softwares like AutoCAD and visualization and rendering softwares, have an easy integration into the world of virtual reality and XR, extended reality. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for companies to change their working processes. So one of our key work areas is to look at how digital tools are currently being used before we start planning the use of virtual reality and other extended reality tools. Now, we mentioned communication earlier in terms of the design team, but of course the wider communication between different stakeholders in the company can be a great application of VR. And then finally through to manufacturing. Here in Taiwan we have many SMEs, many factories, and they are all looking for opportunities to transform, to improve efficiencies, to communicate with overseas customers. So quality control, plant monitoring, process monitoring can be a very good application area for augmented reality, for virtual presence in the factory environment. And healthcare also, in terms of practicing surgery, doing remote surgery. This is a trend in hospitals in the US. Now, if we spoke specifically about construction, here you can see the use of models in VR. So the VR you can see here actually is a HoloLens VR. So this is an augmented reality headset. So you can see through the visor into the real environment, but it adds content into your field of view. So what you can see there is what they can see. They can see a 3D model of this building, but it's sitting within the physical space. So it's kind of simulating the model, the wooden models that are normally used to showcase new designs. So this kind of mixed reality, where you can move between virtual reality and augmented reality, can be a very useful tool as long as it fits into the design process. So you can see these headsets are wireless. This is very important. So you don't have to be tied to a computer. So you can move freely into the war room, into the design area. That's very important. And we now see some headsets, such as the Oculus Quest headsets from Facebook, are wireless headsets, which allows freedom of movement and fits this kind of brainstorming, ideation, discussion environment. So the systems exist now where urban planning, construction, architects can try out. And working with companies like Mojo, we can help to develop new kinds of solutions and, most importantly, new kinds of design practice that can then be applied in smart cities. Because what these tools offer, it's not just the tool itself, it's exciting, it's new, of course, but particularly for smart cities, it offers some advantages. So visualizing data is one key advantage, that we can actually be inside visualizations of data in virtual reality, or we can augment reality with visualizations. We can look at simulations of foot traffic or vehicular traffic in a city environment, and we can be in there, we can actually experience it, not just look at it on a screen. Involving citizens becomes possible. I mentioned that augmented reality and virtual reality technologies have come from the entertainment industry. So there is less fear, I think, from people to try and to use the technology if they were invited, for example, into a town hall or some kind of presentation of a new planning proposal, a new master plan. They would probably be very comfortable to try a virtual reality or an augmented reality experience, and it can be used as a real icebreaker to get citizens on board and involved and participate in the planning process. Now, some applications we've seen of augmented reality have been in heritage refurbishment in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Japan, using cell phones particularly to reimagine areas of the city which have changed and see how they used to be. So all of these technologies are, on the one hand, useful for communication, for storytelling, for the design process, but XR can also become part of the experience of the city and can help decisions to be made. And I think at all points in this process, decisions have to be made. At the beginning, we talked about the decision of technology. Here we're talking about the decision of citizens. Do they accept? Do they want to live in this kind of city? If they were given a chance to participate, would they support the design? So any tool that can offer transparency of planning, can offer experiences of planning which are not reams of paper or reports, but actually visualizations, simulations, experiences, either in virtual reality or augmented reality or extended reality. The experience of something is much more likely to persuade. Now, the future of the city, how a city will develop can also be presented in these extended reality technologies, because we have the opportunity to create digital content. So foresight, the ability to see different futures, can all be created. Now, if we focus on one area, particularly the visualization of data is very important. So here we can see a tablet being held up. This is an augmented reality situation, so we can see the world from the camera, but digital content is superimposed or laid over that image. And in this way we can see data, we can see layers of information that we couldn't see with our eyes. So we might be able to see the movement of electricity, we might be able to see the movement of water, we might be able to see the movement of data. All of these could be imagined and presented in this augmented reality view. So again, explaining and helping to get stakeholders involved and to agree to new constructions, to new environments. This is a very good tool to do that. Another application is moving through buildings. Now, this could be an application of augmented reality for citizens in a new area where they can be guided around, or in new buildings. Could be public buildings, could be public transport. Also can be very useful in emergency situations. We've done some work in earthquake and natural disaster situations where people need to move towards evacuation areas very quickly or get out of buildings very quickly. So these are all potential applications for augmented reality, because as you can see here, guides, navigation guides can be overlaid onto an image, and to help people to be guided around city space. Now, that also relates to traffic and mobility. So it could be for pedestrians, it could also be for vehicles. Getting citizens involved in urban development projects is very important. Certain countries like Estonia, the Scandinavian countries, are very active in involving citizens in participatory design meetings. So you can see here, this is a great opportunity to present new concepts to the citizenry. And these concepts could be zoning, they could be individual buildings. They can be presented in a much more engaging way because the citizens are not design professionals, they're not planning professionals, so they need a representation which is much more easy to grasp, which is much more familiar to them. And having come from the entertainment industry, the XR community of modelers and developers, we are able to create these engaging stories to share with citizens and get their buy-in. So public projects can really benefit from this kind of technology to tell the story of new developments. Now this case study is very interesting from France. The Notre Dame Cathedral, which terribly burnt, the roof burnt a few years ago, has been reimagined and recreated, and this VR experience was offered to citizens to reimagine. It was also turned into an augmented reality content, so you could put the Notre Dame Cathedral on your table, as you can see here. So it's a mixture of course, realistic data. The cathedral was scanned, but it also adds a human element to this in the fact that it becomes a more personal object, something you can have in your home. Rome, Italy, has been experimenting with virtual reality in new urban environments. So Rome, of course, has the ancient city area, and yet the city is still developing. So introducing new city zones through virtual reality is a very good way to both show new areas but also reimagine the past. So here we can see Rome as it was in maybe the 2nd century AD, when all of the buildings that you can see ruined now were active and recreated. So this is a storytelling. It's telling the history of a city, and of course the story of cities, their longevity, is very much part of the experience of living in a city. People love to know the long history of their city, love to know the stories of their city, and these virtual reality tours and augmented reality tours can really help to tell that story. Now, all of this has been focused so far on the physical environment, but of course the digital environment, the movement of information, the availability of information can be visualized as well. So in this picture, the city environment would be visualized through augmented reality. So what we can see here is what that couple can see through the phone. They can see this image created on the table, and they can actually see data moving around the city. They can see where maybe the hotspots are for Wi-Fi, where the good signal is. All of this could be visualized and turned into a service offered by the city. Now, other areas for XR, and I mentioned that XR had come from the gaming industry. We see XR also being used in other kinds of commercial situations, such as advertising and customer engagement, brand engagement, and this is also where we are working. We're applying this XR technology in these consumer situations. And we shouldn't forget that education also is an active area for the use of VR. So being able to visualize, being able to present contents in an engaging way is very good for education, particularly when the education time is less. Perhaps people are involved in lifelong learning, so they have smaller periods, many small periods of learning. These technologies can be very good to quickly communicate complex concepts. So earlier we talked about training, use of XR in training and professional development. Well, this is an extension of that idea. Now, if you're thinking of joining in with us and developing some solutions, well, we need to get some technology. So Microsoft's HoloLens is a mixed reality device, so it can move between fully immersive virtual reality, or it can also offer augmented reality. Looks quite cool as well. Not such a heavy headset. So this is a popular platform. Many contents and software have been developed for that. Your mobile phone, of course, is a great augmented reality device. So both Apple and Android phones have augmented reality toolkits which can be used to develop applications and software. And we develop many of these areas. Nvidia is interestingly active in this area. So Nvidia is a chip maker. They specialize in graphics chips, so they have a big business in the gaming area. So it's no surprise that they see the XR application as an important one for them. And the one I mentioned here next to me, this is the Oculus, and this is a wireless headset with everything fully contained inside. Oculus is, I think, the best value and the best device for developing tools for urban planning, for designers and planning activities. So this is what we have chosen as our platform, and here you can see it comes with two handsets which are also wireless, so the whole system is free to move around. You can have room scale experiences and room scale virtual reality worlds to explore. Now Steam is a gaming platform, but the equivalent for professional applications is Stream. So we're starting to see some industrial or rather commercial platforms for the sharing of VR experiences developing. So Stream is an early example from the construction industry, but I think we'll see more of these resources being available. These are places where applications and feeds can be consolidated, so you can search and you can collaborate and you can communicate with other users of XR, sharing data, sharing experiences. So this, I think, the community aspect will be pushing this technology forward. Just to close, some of the areas where we are using extended reality, we develop a lot of trade show experiences, and this is a trade show that we often work at, which is the Kyoto and the Barcelona Smart City World Congress. So we've been here for several years promoting design and extended reality in the smart city context. And at this event we actually take new companies who are developing products and software. They come with us and we present them to investors in Barcelona and in Japan, in Kyoto. So it's a very interesting activity where we can see the industry developing. We use the tools themselves in our own design process. So when we're thinking about new spaces and new environments, we immediately model them in virtual reality and experience them. We also have spaces where we invite our customers to come and work and visit and pitch inside the virtual reality. And we also invite students to come in and have classes in these spaces. Now here in Taiwan, we've actually just recently signed an MOU with Tsinghua University to develop XR tools for designers. So we're working with different members of the design faculty at Tsinghua, both product design, architecture, urban planning, to develop and test XR design tools. So all the areas that I've been talking about, from communication to visualization to simulation, we will be creating prototypes and taking them out to companies in central Taiwan. A lot of companies at the Southern Science Park, where Chenggong has a liaison center, and we'll actually be running design workshops and design activities with these companies to see how they respond to these new technologies. So hopefully we'll be sharing more about that in some open sessions later this year. So very exciting. Now just to finish on our process as a design agency, we're very interested to have a design-focused process to develop new technology and new experiences. So we always do insights research with our end user. We then develop concepts, and we use augmented reality and virtual reality to communicate those concepts. We then use the tools in our production and execution work to test, perhaps usability testing or interaction testing. And then we may offer those virtual experiences on a live system, and then we maintain that for a client. It could be a city, it could be a company. So we follow a typical design process with these XR tools, both to develop them, but also they're used in our process as well. So just to finish up, I'm just conscious of the time here. We're just coming up to an hour. Questions and answers. So these are some questions we've had in previous keynotes and discussions. I thought I'd just share a few of them. Should XR seek to transform urban planning with developed technology or with developed process? Well, I think, as I've said, the technology is both an end result. It's something that can be offered to users of cities, to citizens, but it's also part of the planning and design process. So it offers new ways to look at data, it offers new ways to communicate, new ways to collaborate within the design team. So it should be able to offer new design processes. How can we transform design and planning culture? Well, I think the first thing is not to be afraid of technology. I speak with many urban planners and architects, and sometimes they're quite fearful of the technology. They worry that it will it will somehow cause problems in their work. Well, the point is good to find a good agency to work with, find a good partner to work with like Mojo, who understands the design process, who can help you to understand the limitations and the advantages of the technology, but most of all just to make the transition smooth so that you can use the tools freely. But don't be afraid. How can XR work in O2O, online to offline environments? Well, by its nature, the XR is a digital technology, so inherently it presents digital information. So of course it can simulate very well. It can help you to imagine and present new worlds. Augmented reality has the interesting physical aspect. So its presentation is based on the physical world. So whatever you overlay has to make sense in terms of the physical world. So things have to appear to be on top of physical objects. So within the augmented world, the offline and the online are very well connected, and we're starting to see more and more technologies allowing us to scan very quickly a physical environment and then immediately be able to overlay digital contents into our view through our lens or our camera, and to have the digital object appear to match the physical environment. So if a fear is that, well, I don't want everything to be virtual, I want to also have the physical space, well then augmented reality is a good solution for you. Last one. This is a very common question. XR is expensive. How to deal with this? Well, there are many aspects to XR. It's not just about the headset. Also, there's the software. There's also the networking parts. The prices are coming down drastically. I mean, this Oculus headset, the whole kit only costs $300. So that's a small investment in something which can be very flexible, can be a basis for several years of work. We develop software on these headsets. We create virtual worlds on these headsets. We do many different things with them. They're very flexible platforms, and really good value for money. Basically, you're getting a VR headset and a computer all together in one device. So don't worry too much about the cost. There are ways to keep that cost down. The key thing is to just try it out. Give it a try and see how it works. So to summarize the presentation, current urban planning really needs to get in touch with some of these new technologies. So by using the extended reality technologies, you can visualize data, you can really start to think about telematics and the way that cities work, these different layers of information and technology in the smart city can be imagined and visualized and designed more easily. Communication can be enhanced, particularly with remote teams or non-expert members who need to participate, who are important stakeholders. And finally, we're not saying to replace existing tools or existing methods. We want to bring the new tools into an existing process and improve and adapt that process. So it's really for us the important step in our work is this kind of what we call the insights phase, where we're understanding how a team works and thinking what would be the best technology for them. Is it augmented reality? Is it virtual reality? And then developing solutions and tools which are appropriate. So there's no solution that works for everybody. You just need to understand and adapt the technology, and it is very adaptive and very flexible, so that's no problem. So that's all from me today. I leave you with some QR codes where you can actually experience some of our virtual reality work. You can also visit our website, and you can give some feedback on this presentation as well, however you are watching it, on your phone, on your computer, or maybe in virtual reality. So my name is Dr. David Williams from Global Digital Mojo, and I look forward to seeing or meeting you online soon.